So hopefully we are doing okay as we further progress during 2024. For some of you, it's been an eventful year. Others, maybe not so much. But that's okay. That is how, of course, the years roll around. But I was sitting there thinking, and there's some things that I kind of want to remind you of as we continue to go through 2024. It's January 11th, all right? And so, as you can tell already, the time is moving at a fast pace, But one thing that I want you to remember as you go into 2024, no matter what the circumstance may be, is know your worth. I said that countless times, but I cannot express enough know your worth. And I'm not necessarily limited to the workforce, but just in general, when it comes to life, know your worth, know your value. Don't let nobody depreciate you, right? Don't let nobody devalue you. Know your worth, know what you stand on, know all of that, just so you know who you are and no one's gonna sell you short. These are things that you need to know. So yes, know your worth, because you are more valuable than maybe you even realize, but more valuable than other people realize. And so if you put in work, whether it's professionally or personally, then again, know your worth, know your value, and don't, underappreciate yourself, because you deserve it. And so as we get into 2024, as we get into 2024, that is something that you need to remember. Above all else, remember your worth. Don't let nobody tell you that you're not worth what you think you are. Don't let nobody talk down to you in a manner where you feel, helpless and hopeless. No, don't let nobody do that to you, because you don't deserve that. So know your value, and don't let nobody talk to you any kind of way where the sense where, you feel embarrassed, or it puts you in a compromising situation where, it's just awkward, right? So know your worth on all circumstances. Again, professionally and personally, these are things that you need to know. So remember that. Another thing that I want you to remember as we go through 2024 is save space for those individuals who matter. And what I mean by that is, most of us have active lives. We're always busy. We're always doing something. We rarely sit stagnant, and we're always on the go. But in the process of that, we have difficulties. We run into roadblocks and things of that nature. But with that being said, there are those people who we think we can count on during those times, but they're nowhere to be found. They'll take and take and take, but when you're in a situation where you need something, they disappear. So then you have those individuals, you may not talk every day, you may talk every 6 months, you might even talk every year. But those people, you can count on. No matter what, no matter how bad your life is going at the time, they will be there for you. Whether they can assist you or sit and talk with you or sit with you in the dark to help get you through that process. So those are the people you need to make time for. Even though you don't talk to them regularly, maybe you should build that bridge where you can talk more on a frequent basis, because somehow we tend to talk more to people that won't do nothing for us, and less to people who will do everything for us. That's kind of backwards. So we kind of got to balance that out a little bit, right? Because that's not how that's supposed to be. So make time for the people in your life who matters, because through thick and thin, they're the ones who stand there through the storm. So make time for those individuals. Another thing that I want you to remember as we progress through 2024, accept what cannot be changed. Lay everything out and just kind of do an assessment. And sometimes you're spilling the wheel over and over and over again, waiting for something to change. But it's not changing. It's still stagnant. It's still in the same position that it was a year ago or 2 years ago. Some things are just not going to change, no matter how you look at it. So if you are in a toxic work environment and it's been that way for a long period of time, and you hope and you saw leadership come and go, but the toxicity is still there. It is still causing havoc on you, it is still having an emotional effect on you, then you gotta make a change. You realize it's not going to change, so it has to be you who make the change. Now I get it. It's not always up and easy to say, oh, I'm gonna go get a new job, because life doesn't work that way for some people. It's a process, and then trying to find a job that matches what you make. That's always a process too. So I get all that. But your self-care, your mental health is really important. So again, accept what cannot be changed. And if it cannot be changed, what can you do about it to change your circumstance? That is something that you also need to remember in that process. So keep that in mind as you continue to go through 2024. Again, we are already on the 11th, so it's kind of going at a fast pace. So next thing I want you to remember, admit and accept your own mistakes. Now, we are not perfect. No one's perfect. So we all make mistakes all the time, and that's okay. We're going to make mistakes, but we need to own those mistakes. Some of us get too prideful to not acknowledge that, you are wrong. Well, it's okay to say, I was wrong. Own it. Own it for what it is. We're wrong all the time. Some of us are wrong every day. So own that. There's nothing wrong with owning that and admitting that you're wrong. When you're sitting in a work environment and you're a supervisor, a person in charge, and you have your team and you made a mistake or you made a couple mistakes, it happens. Don't push it off on them, or you delegated a task. And this is where a lot of leaders, supervisors go wrong. You delegate a task to somebody and say, all right, here, you got this. And then you forget about it. So like fire and forget. But then once it comes back to surface that task was a catastrophe and things fell apart, who should you be mad at? Well, you shouldn't be mad at yourself. You shouldn't be mad at them. You should be mad at yourself. Why? Because you are the one who's ultimately responsible. Where leaders go wrong is they fail to supervise. Yes, you've given them the responsibility and the autonomy to do what they want to do, but you still have to manage, lead, and supervise to make sure that project or that task is still on track. You need to make sure it gets completed. You need to make sure it gets completed at the level that's expected from your leadership. If that doesn't happen, then look in the mirror. Own that mistake. You did it. You own it. You take it at face value. You take it for what it's worth, because you are the one who had the shortcoming at that time. So again, own your mistakes. And another thing about owning your mistakes, it shows that you're human, for one. For two, it shows people that you actually care. It's like, this person legitimately cares. They owned it. And then you work out a plan to fix it. And if it's something that was made as a team, well, then you fix it as a team. By you being in charge, well, you own a mistake, but now you're going to bring the team in together to fix it, if that's the case. So that's a case by case, but you need to decide how you want to proceed on that to ensure that, that situation doesn't happen again. So again, own it and take it at face value. So admitting your mistakes. Admitting and owning is something that you need to remember going into 2024. So leadership is about learning, serving, developing, and ultimately it's not about you. So you need to remember that. Learning goes both ways. It's learning for your team and it's learning for you. You both have to learn. When you get to fill that role of, supervisor, or you're a person in a leadership position, well, guess what? Your learning doesn't stop. You haven't made it. You haven't reached that point. You're not there. So by you not being there, then guess what you need to do? You need to continue to develop yourself. At the same time, you need to develop your team. In addition to that, find professional education for your team, especially if it will help them do their job better. Depending on the organization you work for, they have those programs where you can take classes or get certifications. Well, make sure they get enrolled in that. And this is where a lot of people go wrong. Oh, our tempo is so busy, we don't have time. Okay, you don't have time. So you can't let this person go to a course for 2 weeks because you don't have time. So what happens if that person dies? Well, you're going to continue. You're not going to skip a beat. So if they went away for 2 weeks and come back, Same difference. So allow them to go get that education that they need. And then the same root things for you. Like, the world is not going to fall apart if you went to a professional development class for a week. The same thing with your team. If your organization is that dependent on that individual, then something's wrong. Because now you're dependent on one person to accomplish something. This is why you become well-rounded and you train everybody on your team to do everybody else's job. So if someone goes out sick, or someone goes on vacation, or someone goes to professional learning, then you won't skip a beat because you have somebody to cover. And not only can they cover, they can cover efficiently. So these are some things you also want to remember when you're going through that process. So keep that in mind. So that is the part about the learning, because again, learning goes both ways. The team learns and the leader continuously learns. There's no cap of level that you stop learning. You keep learning. Serving process. We talked about learning and development. So serve your team. Serve your team. Because one thing you need to remember, leadership, it has multiple facets and foundations. But serving is one of the key elements of leadership. Because it's not about how high you can hold your chest up or how far you can stick it out. Again, it's not about you. So when you go into that position, or you're a person that you're finally in charge, okay, smile for a little bit, be happy. But again, you can be happy for yourself, but be more happy for your team and how they're going to succeed. Be more happy of how you're going to take care of them and get them out of the toxic situation they're in. Be more happy about you preventing them from getting into a toxic situation, because you are now the buffer and you can prevent some of that stuff from rolling downhill. What are you going to do? So that's what you need to be happy about. When stuff starts being thrown your way, how much are you going to deflect from your team? Now, there are some things that's going to get through. I get that. But you have to block the majority of it. Block what you can. So you make sure you take care of the team and you serve them well. And serve, what I mean, you're not a slave to them, but you serving them, you're taking care of them, you're taking care of their needs, you're setting them up for success. And when I say taking care of their needs, that means giving them professional development. That means educating. That means mentoring. That means teaching. That means guiding. That means supervising. All of that stuff is encompassed in serving. So it's like one big umbrella. So all of that falls under the umbrella. So keep that in mind, because in retrospect, you are supposed to be the face of your team. Your team is supposed to look to you for guidance and education and development and compassion and sympathy and so on and so forth. I can just go on and on, but that is your role. So serve your team. Another thing that I want you to remember for 2024: listen to understand and don't listen to respond. I'm gonna say that one more time. Listen to understand, don't listen to respond. This is where people go wrong all the time. So if someone comes to you with, let's say, a complaint, what happens is when you listen to respond, as they're complaining, you're not really focused on what they're saying. You're more so waiting to get to your response, that what they're saying already got under your skin. So you're not really listening. You're just waiting to fire back. And what that does is prevent you from comprehending what they're actually trying to say to you. So listen to understand what they're saying. Once you understand what they're saying, then you process and analyze and then form a response. Because people make mistakes when they do that. It happens all the time. It happens at work. It happens at home. It happens all the time. So, like, if you're ever watching like the news, or someone's doing an interview or something like that, when a person is talking or asking a question, if you ever notice, depending on the circumstance, the person who's being interviewed gets offended by the first part of the question. So now they start talking over the person before they can finish their question. So they did not listen to understand, they started to listen to respond. So again, keep that in mind as you go into 2024. Another thing I want to cover, I got a few more things I want to touch on. Reconcile. And I mentioned this as I closed out 2023. Reconcile and forgive if needed. So again, life is too short. It's too short to have animosity. It's too short to have friction between family and friends. It's too short to be in your feelings somewhere when the other person don't even know you have an issue. Communicate, fix it, forgive, move on. You know, it's that, and I know it's not always that simple, you know, but and it's all about the nature of the issue, right? First of all, the person has to know you have an issue. If the person don't know you have an issue, then it's your issue by itself. So if you are the one who's in your feelings and not communicating your concern or your problem, your issues, well, that's a personal problem, because you're not going to get it resolved or get what's on your chest off because you failed to communicate. Now, as there's a friction between two, sometimes you got to put pride aside and say, you know what, I'm the bigger person. Then, you know what, this is not worth it, what we're going through. We haven't talked in 1, 2, 3, 4 years because of something so minor. That's not even worth it. So if you're in a circumstance where you're in that situation and it's not something severe, then try to fix it. Try to get rid of it and move on. So just keep that in mind. Another thing, love yourself, love your team. You have to love yourself first of all, because if you don't, who's going to love you? You know, so love yourself first, think highly of yourself, believe in yourself, have the confidence in yourself, knowing that you can be great. So love yourself. And then you love your team. You can't love your team if you can't love yourself. So the same thing I said about you is what goes on to your team. You love them, you appreciate them, you're dedicated to them. You love them, why? Because you just do. You should. You just should. Because it's a natural feeling with someone who you bond with in that kind of circumstance, because you are a team. You're doing this together. You're getting from A to Z as one element. Now, granted, there will be obstacles and disagreements and maybe some arguments and things of that nature, some conflict, of course. But family does the same thing. Family does the exact same thing. But they still love each other in most cases. That is, most cases. So love and appreciate them and let them know that they are appreciated all the time. You know, we take it for granted that, you know, they're doing great work. You know, it's the small things, it's the little things that matter. If a person knows that they are appreciated, if you say it randomly or you send an email or you say it in a team meeting that you appreciate your whole entire team, you know, it goes a long way. It goes a long way, because now they know what they're doing has meaning. It has value. You know, they can see it from the outside, you know, that, you know, they're making progress or they're doing a good job. But it's sort of like a kid. It's sort of like that child that wants their parents' blessing. They want to know their parents is proud of them. Like, yeah, the coach can be proud, the teacher can be proud. That's all that is, you know, well. But for them to make their parents proud, then that has a whole different meaning and it gives them a whole different feeling. So keep that in mind. So the last thing I'm going to touch on, and I want you to remember, we're 11 days into 2024. If it started off rocky, it started off rough, it didn't go as expected, keep going. Keep going and push through 2024. Life goes in seasons. Like, you'll have where things are just great. You know, you feel you kind of sitting on top of the world, you're somewhere, but then you're gonna hit a snowstorm or a blizzard or a rainstorm or a flood where everything seems bad. But guess what? It will pass. Well, you have to believe it will pass, but it will pass. How you weather that storm will determine what happens on the other end of that storm. How you get through it will determine what happens on the other end of that storm. So that is something that you need to keep in mind. What will happen? How will they look on the other side? Well, it's what you do while you're going through the storm that will dictate that. So keep that in mind. Because also, during that stormy season or that bad season, you learn about yourself, you learn what you're capable of, and you will grow from it. You will grow from it. So now there's more tools that are added to your toolbox. So keep that in mind. So those are the things that I wanted to touch on during 2021 or 2024, of things that I want you to remember as we go through this year together. Anybody got any questions before I close out? If you got any questions, of course, type it in the chat and I'll do whatever I can to respond to it. But again, as you close out, embrace this new year, continue to take on and tackle 2024, because it's not going to get no easier. But take it like a boss and own 2024. Let it know that you are that person and you can do it. So other than that, I appreciate you all, who took the time to do what you're doing, whether you're driving in the car or you're at home or at work. I appreciate you taking the time to sit and listen to me for a little bit. Thank you. Again, I appreciate all of you. I appreciate you supporting the page. If you got any questions, or you can always send me a message, and we can talk about it. Also, if there's a particular topic that you want to talk about, send me a personal message. And then if it's something that I think that should come to the bigger table, I'll do a live session about it. Or if it's just a concern you have, then I will address you. I will respond to your message one-on-one. Thanks, I appreciate that. Other than that, again, I appreciate you all. Thank you for taking the time. And hopefully you got something out of this, and enjoy the rest of your day.